Laws, who's been called the Erin Brockovich of revenge porn. Charlotte, lovely to have you with us this evening. Just tell me about the impact of Hunter Moore's crimes, what that did to your daughter and your family.
Well, it was absolutely devastating to my daughter. She felt exploited and victimized and humiliated, and she pretty much turned the knife inward and blamed herself, which at that time, victim blaming was everywhere. From regular people and politicians and law enforcement, that was the modus operandi, and it was before the Me Too movement. And my husband didn't even want me to pursue it because he didn't understand the internet, and he thought things would just go away if you left it alone. But we all know that things populate and spread online, and especially a topless picture. So I knew I had to get my daughter's picture down immediately before it spread to other websites.
Because Kayla hadn't actually posted this herself online, had she? She'd actually emailed it.
Yeah, she was taking pictures in her room, and she took over 100 shots, and one of them was topless, and she had no intention of ever showing it to anyone. And because she ran out of space on her phone, she emailed them to her email box, and that's what was hacked. And the hacker got in and a few days later posted it on Hunter Moore's website, along with her name, her city, and her social media link.
And you spent 2 years, didn't you, trying to track down Hunter Moore? Just how did you even start? Where did you begin trying to find him?
Well, I mean, I knew his name because it was prominently out there, but I didn't know, initially where he lived, and he put a lot of lies online on his website. So I really had to investigate and kind of look outside of the box and try to find out what the truth was. And I used to be a private investigator in the 1980s, and I kind of have that type of personality anyway. So I just kind of dug into it. I mean, no one really knew anything about revenge porn. There were no laws against it. And I reached out to a bunch of attorneys at the beginning, and they just kind of threw up their hands and said, I can't help you. I don't know anything about this. There's no precedent. So it was really completely up to me. And one thing about these victims is they usually cannot fight for themselves. And that was also the case with my daughter. So she was just curled up in her room, shut down all of her social media, didn't want to even have any contact with the world. So it was like up to me to do this. And so I just took it on.
And people might be surprised to learn that in the end, Hunter Moore didn't actually go to jail for revenge porn. He went for other crimes, didn't he? Because it's really difficult to get somebody convicted for revenge porn.
Yeah, there were no laws at that point. So he went to jail for hacking because he had hired a hacker to get photos of people who would never want to be on that site, because it was not about posting nude pictures. It was not about pornography. It was about humiliation. It was about ruining lives. It was about getting people fired from their jobs. That's what Hunter Moore and his followers enjoyed. That's what the whole site was about. So that's basically it.
You referenced it a bit there, but the community that built up around this website, around Hunter Moore, it was really dark. Did you ever find out why he'd chosen to do this to people?
I think he just figured it was an easy way to get famous. He was getting a lot of attention. He was enjoying the fact that the media were glorifying him. He was doing all sorts of TV shows, and Rolling Stone did a big article on him. And he was just getting a lot of attention. And he had this God complex. He didn't think anybody could touch him, and he thought he was invincible. And he had found a new business model, but hurting women should never be a business model. So I think that's kind of how he got into it. And he has a mindset, he's very misogynistic, and he has a mindset that if you tear other people down, somehow it builds you up, which is a really sad way to go through life. He's got to be a miserable shell of a person to have that kind of way of thinking. And it's a shame because he was able to draw big crowds and get a lot of people to follow him. And if he had used those talents for positive purposes, I think he could have done a lot of great things.
He was jailed for 30 months, but clearly there are other websites, similar people doing things like this still. Are you hoping for a change in the law to make it easier to stop revenge porn happening?
Well, we do have laws currently, because I started working on, helping politicians and doing whatever I could to get laws in place. So we do have laws in 48 states, but we don't have a federal law yet. And that's what I'm really hoping, that this documentary will push Congress to get something passed, because it's important to have one law for the whole country. So A, everybody is protected. And secondly, you want to have something that's consistent and uniform. You don't want to have every state with something different. And that's very confusing. You don't know what law would even apply, whether it's the state the perpetrator's in or the state the victim's in. So it's really important to get that passed. And I'm concerned about it because the congresswoman who brought it forward, Jackie Spear, is leaving after this term. And her office told me about a month ago that there's only a 4% chance it's going to pass. So I really hope it's going to pass, and I don't know who might take up the torch after she leaves if it hasn't passed. But I think that's very important, and I hope the documentary can move things in that direction.
And just finally, people watching this might think, okay, well, it's one topless photo. I'm sure not very many people saw it, but this can really ruin people's lives. Just tell us about the impact that something like that has on a person, on your daughter.
Yeah, I mean, my daughter lost an acting role because of it. Her assistant manager at her waitress job told her, I could get you fired. She had a very well-known porn star caller and said he wanted to talk business. She had all these creepy men, trying to ask her out and saying, hey, baby, I've seen you topless. I mean, it was really disturbing to her. And there are other people, I started helping other victims. And, the teacher that you had, you showed earlier, showed that segment. She lost her job. I've talked to at least like 6 or 7 teachers because I've talked now to over 500 victims of revenge porn. And so it really is devastating. I mean, if you have a high profile job, you're an executive, for example, you can lose your job over it. You can lose your entire career. And the internet follows you everywhere. You cannot hide from it. You cannot escape. So it's a really big deal. And that's why the laws are important.